Hey everybody, welcome to this first module. I'm calling it the Chalk Talk because it's the introduction for all of our new members that are joining this former athlete society. Think of yourself as a new team member. You're just tried out for the team. Coach says, "Hey, come on down to the practice fields or basketball court. You can try out for the team." Right. So this Chalk Talk, this is for you. This is a first introduction to what it is like here at the Former Athlete Society in this school community. And I want to teach you just a few of the things that I teach to our athletes every single day. Every single day, I'm covering a topic. And it's daunting a little bit because it's a lot of material to teach athletes some of these things. But today I'm going to teach you some of these, right? And I think these are the habits that allow you to be successful. We talk about habits and discipline all the time in this community, and I'm going to start to share some of these habits and some of these disciplines with you, and it's going to start today. And I'm going to talk, I know in the introduction video that you got, the step one, start here module, right? I talked about this wheel, this continuum of athlete development. And whether you are a freshman in high school, a freshman in college, or you're a freshman in life, in your professional life, you should learn these things. They're absolutely valuable for you, and we're going to discuss them. So let me start with this. I'm going to share my screen. We are going to jump into the presentation. Let's see how this will work. I'm going to try this here. And maybe this will work. Oh, yeah. Okay. This ain't too bad. Let's go slideshow. Again, I haven't tried this format before, so I hope it goes well. Nonetheless, here we are. Okay. Like we talked about, I call this Performance University for a reason. It's not performance, it's performance. It's how to be a professional in your professional life. You need to learn these things in order to be able to better modulate, manage, and just navigate life post athletic career as a former athlete. So here we are, Former Athlete Society School module number 2, the Chalk Talk. It's Performance University. And I wanted to start with this. I'm going to turn this off in case it's on my screen. I wanted to start with this in that if you have never seen this wheel, this is what I was talking about. This is my wheel: fueling, body, mentality, recovery, and training. These things are critically important, right? And why I say that is because those things are going to determine your success as a former athlete. They're also going to be the very things that are going to determine your success as a current athlete. So that it's no different. How we navigate these things sometimes will depend, obviously, on our participation and levels of activity and all of those things, but they're important regardless of where you're at on this. So we're going to go one lap around this entire wheel so that you get the genesis, you get the idea, that the thought process of what this course is about. So what is fueling? Fueling for me is the strategies, the habits, and the necessary information that you need to fuel and prepare like a pro. Now, whether you're being a professional or a pro on the accounting floor, the business realm, in the world that you operate as a professional, or if it's just being a professional baseball player, athlete, or basketball, right, soccer player, all of those things are no different. The lessons that you learn as a college athlete are the same lessons that you need to apply in your later life. So we're going to get into fueling today. I'm going to talk, as I said in the introduction video, a lot about your body, right? Because I think sometimes we as strength coaches, we get so busy in sets and reps and exercise selection and team culture and discipline and all these things that we maybe miss the boat with ever teaching you why. Why is this important to your body? Why is it important to train? Why is it important to do this type of cardio? What does it actually do from an anatomical standpoint, a physiological standpoint to my body? And why is that important with managing this health and your health span and your lifespan that you need in your professional life? So we're going to discuss that today. We're also going to get quite heavily into this mentality piece, right? I talked about that in the first introduction to the Former Athlete Society course, the mentality or the psychology. But I think it's really important to get this thing, our little noggin, what's the space in between our two ears, to really dial that in and get that operating at a high level. Because I used to have a mentor who talked a lot about neck down training, right? The physiology. And quite frankly, that's really easy, right? Now, yes, it might require certain disciplines and sacrifices, waking up early, going through the physical endeavors that is training. Sure, that's one piece to it. However, the psychology, the discipline that you have when your entire body and mind is saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't wake up, don't wake up, don't put your running shoes on. It's 5 more minutes in the bed. Those things are really different, right? And that's why we need to train this mindset. We need to train this psychology piece. And we're going to, quite frankly, we're going to get into that a lot in this course, how to win the mental battle for everyday activities and everyday professional life. We're also going to get into the strategies to enhance your recovery between training sessions. So in the introduction, I talked, quite frankly, a lot about sort of the ability to go from 1 game to 2 games, 2 games to 4 games, 4 games to training every single day and competing, whether it's pickup soccer games or softball leagues, whatever it might be. However, you're trying to express your competitive edge post-athletic career, post-college days, however you're trying to express that, I want to get into the strategies necessary to be able to enhance your recovery between training sessions. And we're going to dive a lot into that today. And then as well, training. Why do we train? Why do we do what we do? Why do we do these sets and reps and exercises? Quite frankly, what does it do to our body? How do we respond? How does our body respond? And we're going to teach that. And so the body and the training go hand in hand. That's why they're kind of on opposite sides, but they're all connected. They're all connected. And just in the same way that fueling and recovery is opposite sides, because those are connected. And yes, it's a wheel. They all sort of are interconnected in its own way, right? Mentality is at the bottom of this wheel. It's the foundation of what we do, and the mentality that we have as an athlete or a former athlete, whether it's, again, whatever side of the continuum that you're on, that's so critically important. So we're going to discuss all 5 realms of this performance university today in this sort of chalk talk, just to get your head wrapped around how I operate in the society and some of the things that I share and the lessons that we teach throughout these modules and courses. I think it's important to pause here. I want to make sure that you're engaging with this. So leave some comments in it as well, and let me know how this material, how it resonates. I want to hear some things as far as what you're doing from a fueling, body, mentality, recovery, and training perspective. So drop into the discussion, the general, and let's leave some comments about module number 2, this chalk talk, and comment a little bit about that as well. The second or third thing in this, the tertiary aspect to it, is that I've laid this curriculum out in a way that is somewhat non-sequential. And that's really, really important, because if you think of a chapter book and you go from chapter 1 to chapter 2 to chapter 3, all the way to the last chapter, it's sequential in nature because it builds on the previous chapter, right? You can't just flip a book open to the chapter number 19 and start there. You wouldn't have the character development. You wouldn't know the plot. You wouldn't know who's who, anything like that. I've sort of laid this out in a way that I think every lesson is independent of each other. So, and granted, I will navigate and build this society and build our courses in a way that builds off previous topics. I'm not going to teach you advanced algebra or calculus if you don't know how to do addition and subtraction. So we're going to build on some topics. Certainly, there's that. But otherwise, each of them are kind of independent of each other. So, no one thing is more important than the other topic. And this allows for this to be iterative. It allows this to sort of continue to pick up our new topic, new research, new methodologies in recovery, new aspects or research in mentality or psychology, various topics within training and your body. And then the fueling piece is important regardless whether we're talking about one thing or another thing. So I just wanted to make sure I clarify that as we get into this topic, as we navigate this entire wheel. And without further ado, let's jump into this chalk talk. So module 1, as we're going through this around the wheel, fueling, let's discuss what I think you need to know as an athlete, a former athlete, about fueling, because your strength coach or your nutritionist or somebody in university should have taught you this. And if not, I'm trying to fill in the gaps, and I'm trying to help you throughout your journey and your career here as well. So macronutrients are really, really important, right? Both macro and micro. However, what I'm noticing is that a lot of the athletes I work with, they don't, if I ask them like, hey, you need to get more protein, you need to get more carbohydrates, you need to get more fats. Quite frankly, they're like, coach, I don't know what a protein is. I don't know what a fat is. Can you help me with that? So let's break this down. Macronutrients are the nutrients that the body needs in large quantities to provide energy, to maintain the structures and the systems of the body. And the 3 macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So if nothing else you take away from this, what's a macronutrient, coach? It's a carbohydrate, it's a protein, or it's a fat. Those are the 3 macronutrients, carbs, proteins, fats, that exist in general nutritional conversation, right? Now, there's micronutrients, right? And those are important as well. They're essential for, growth of the body, development, the immune system. They help the body produce enzymes and hormones and regulate the physiology and functions of cells and organs, right? These are all of the various sort of chemicals and vitamins and all the little things that your body needs in order to operate. So now, the macro kind of sits at the top. If you think of like macroeconomics versus microeconomics, macro, large picture things, right? Carbs, proteins, fats. Micronutrients, there's so many micronutrients, but that's the differential between macro and micro. Now, discussing macronutrients, to go back to that first part with the athlete sort of saying, hey, Adam, hey, coach, what's a carb? What's a protein? What's a fat? I don't know these things. Let's see if I move this over just in case I'm blocking anything on the screen. So a carb, right? This is, let's see. A carb is generally, let's go back here. These are your fruits. They are your starchy vegetables. They are your breads. They are your main energy sources. And don't worry, I have lessons like dive into specifically about carbs, lessons specifically about proteins, lessons specifically about fats. So I'll get into all of these. This is just a higher level picture for today's Chalk Talk, right? They're your fruits, right? Those are your energy sources, carbohydrates as an energy source. Hey, coach, what's a protein, right? Proteins, here it goes. Here's the most cliche version and phrase in nutrition. Protein is the building blocks of muscle, right? Amino acids are the building blocks. Proteins are comprised of amino acids. So these are your things like dairies in some respects, although there's some fats in there. They are your meats, right? Your red meats, your poultry, your chickens, your beefs, right? These are your eggs, contain a lot of protein. So, things like fish, chicken, beef, pork, dairy. Yes, you see that sort of intermediate sort of zone that's sort of both comprised of carbs and proteins. These are your nuts, and some of your seeds have both, some fibrous carbohydrates in it, but also have some proteins in it. And what's a fat? So fats are again, the most energy dense sort of foods or macronutrients out there, right? If there's nothing more, and there's a whole section in this sort of lesson in this course that we'll get into later that discussing about counting calories and caloric sort of energy balance, if you will. But so we know there for every 1 gram of carbohydrate, it is 4 calories. For every 1 gram of protein, it's 4 calories. For every 1 gram of fat, it's 9 calories. So it's super energy dense, right? So things like avocados, oils, right? And now, yes, cheese is probably predominantly fat. You see that in that little zone that's comprised of protein and fats. Your salmons are really a fatty fish. It has a lot of fat to it, omega-3s. Um, and eggs, right? You think of the yolk, the yellow of the eggs, that's a lot of fat in it, right? Most of the protein exists in an egg in the white. But yeah, the yolk is actually an energy dense fat source to it, right? Now, moving on from this sort of conversation about macronutrients, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the body. And I want you to understand that there is a difference between fat or adipose tissue and muscle. So a lot of the times I hear this all the time from athletes. Hey, coach, I don't want to, and predominantly from my women athletics programs. Like, I don't want to get too bulky. I don't want to gain too much muscle mass, coach, because I don't want to, I don't want to fill out my shirts or my dresses or my pants or things. And what's really important to understand is that from a size standpoint, from a structural size standpoint, adipose tissue or fat actually exists in a larger sort of volume of space where the same weight equivalent, let's just say 1 pound of fat here on the left side of the screen versus 1 pound of muscle mass on the right side of the screen, you can see the volume of the adipose tissue being so much greater than the muscle mass. So when athletes say, "Hey, coach, I don't want to gain too much muscle. I don't want to," what's happening is we're replacing that adipose tissue, that fat tissue with muscle. So quite frankly, you actually get more lean. You get structurally smaller and tighter and more ripped and cut and jacked and all of the great adjectives that we can use. But quite frankly, we actually get much more leaner by focusing on adding muscle mass. So muscle uses energy to produce force and movement. Muscle is denser than adipose tissue or fat. So the same weight of muscle and adipose will take up different volumes. We talked about that the fat tissue takes up way more volume than the muscle tissue. Now, adipose tissue, fat storage in our body is important, right? It's a type of tissue that stores energy. And if it stores it in the form of lipids and it provides insulation and cushioning throughout our body, sometimes we get really super lean athletes, and I want them lean. I want them strong. I want them jacked. And sometimes, if it's a contact collision type sport, I actually want a little bit of fat on them because it acts as some armor and some cushioning and some protective tissue over the top of their muscles to protect their bone health and structurals. Now, what I hear, and I said this already, I don't want to be too bulky, coach. I don't want my pants to fit too tight. I don't want my vertical jump to decrease. I don't want to gain too much muscle mass because I'm worried about running up and down the court and my conditioning coach. And I hear you and I understand you. However, in the frame of basketball, I will say, never in the history of basketball performance or any performance, soccer performance, baseball performance, or performance in life has an athlete or a former athlete ever struggled or decreased their strength, power, conditioning by gaining muscle mass. So, quite frankly, if you're listening to this and you're female or male, but if you're female and you're worried about gaining too much muscle mass, you have nothing to worry about. You need to gain muscle mass. You need to gain that. And it's going to help you in almost every facet of your post-collegiate, post-career, post-athlete career into life. So mentality. Now, this is a weird one to start with. It's more of a mentality psychological hack, and it also taps into the physiology. So this guy is well renowned. This is Andrew Huberman. He runs a podcast, the Huberman Podcast. PhDs in neuroscience, UC Davis, psychology from UC Berkeley. Super smart guy, very knowledgeable in things. But why I put him in here is because he had a concept that we use in our athletes all of the time. And I think this could help you in a high stress situation. If your boss calls you in for a meeting and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm in a meeting and now it's my boss and I'm getting a little anxious, whatever it might be. I teach this to athletes in high pressure situations all the time, just to give you something tangible that you can use right now, right today, this week in this situation. So he ended up tweeting this out. This is a well-known physiological response in the human body, right? And so he ends up talking about this psychological size, right, as a, a superior method to calming anxiety in our body, more so than meditation, right? So think of a basketball player, think of a penalty kick, think of a penalty. I'm trying to think of I don't work with hockey a lot, but a penalty like, shot on goal, whatever. It's a very stressful situation. A lot rides on this one thing: free throws, penalty kicks, right? Critical moment, pitcher battling it out with the batter. So again, what we can take away from this is that this psychological sigh, a short nasal inhale, the second inhale, long exhale, right? Doing this psychological sigh right, calms us down. It taps into some of the physiology with our nervous system, and it actually lowers our heart rate. It quickly allows us to get back into closer to our resting heart rate, calms our nervous system so that you can go back out and perform. I use this all the time. I teach it to all of our athletes. It's a huge sort of hack, if you will, of your physiology. So it's a breathing technique, involves 2 inhales, particularly through the nose, followed by a long exhale through the mouth. And it reduces stress and anxiety. It can be done intentionally when you're feeling stressed. So if you get caught into your boss's office or you're in a high pressure situation this week, think about the double inhale, single exhale, double through the nose, through the mouth, psychological size. Let's talk a little bit about recovery, some of the things that you can do in between training sessions or pickup games or things like this. I teach this all the time to our athletes, and they utilize it quite a bit. So active recovery is a series of low intensity exercise that increases blood flow to muscles, right? Helps repair them. It promotes blood flow. It delivers good nutrients into the working muscle. So as we're eating better and better foods, which we'll get into as we talk about nutrition in more detail and in depth, it delivers those nutrients to the working muscle, but also equally as important, it removes some of the metabolic waste from the training that you did the previous day. Oh, coach, isn't that kind of counterintuitive? I shouldn't probably be doing more activity. I'm already sore. I'm already fatigued. I'm already tired. Why should I do a little bit more? Right. And it's this combination of delivering good nutrients and removing bad metabolic waste that we can leverage to increase our recovery. So I put this Santa Claus carrying a trash bag because this is exactly what we're trying to do. Now, I put this because Santa Claus is often sort of associated with delivering good things, delivering presents to, like kids on Christmas morning, right? We think of Santa Claus as bringing us good things, but I have him carrying this trash bag because that's waste. Nobody wants waste, right? We take it out to the trash, we throw it away. So it's sort of this conundrum of Santa Claus bringing good things, but also removing bad things at the same time. And that's what active recovery is. So you can leverage it by a light aerobic spin bike, right? You go to the gym, or whether it's in your neighborhood or at home, if you're fortunate enough to have a bike at home, or using a treadmill or an incline treadmill, light activity, right? I often say motion is lotion, and we just want to end up trying to go through the motions a little bit. Light activity gets your heart ba-bump, 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 but beating more, it increases your heart rate. And as your vascular system is going, that's funneling those nutrients to the right muscles. And it's also returning some of that metabolic waste and getting that flushed out of our system as well. So active recovery is a really good thing, and you should employ it in between training bouts or in between sessions. This is sort of the geeky aspect. If you're a little bit more like me, I'm a little bit analytical in my brain, but you can kind of follow the pathway between resources going into the body, right? And whether it's catabolic or anabolic, right? You kind of see how metabolic waste is out. We can bring the good nutrients in. We can remove the metabolic waste, and how this sort of works from an endocrinological aspect of the human body. All right, training. Here we are. We're going to discuss it. Stress adaptation. Coach, can I just lift the same thing over and over and over again? Why am I not getting bigger? Why am I not getting stronger? Why am I not getting more fit? I'm going to explain why. General adaptation syndrome. What does this mean for you? Well, it means this. It means that we have to, I'm trying to move this little camera thing around. I don't actually know. So we're learning together right now the sort of the function of our modules. And of course, I'm using the software. So I don't actually know where I'm popping up on the screen. So hopefully I'm not overlapping the entire lesson of everything. But general adaptation syndrome is this, right? You have your normal homeostasis where your body likes to operate and be at, right? And then what happens is we have this stressor, we have this shock to our system. Think of you never training before, and then you going, your gym buddy says, "Hey, come join me in this gym. It's going to be CrossFit, or it's going to be Mecca. It's going to be, Orange Theory. It's going to be whatever it is." And you do it, and you're competitive, right? You're a former athlete. Hell yeah, you're going to beat them, and you do it. It's a huge shock to your system. And this black line sort of represents performance, let's just say. Right away, after the onset of that stressor, your performance is decreased. That's just shock. That's your body in this sort of like compensation aspect. You're like, oh, dang, like I am sore, I am fatigued, I am tired, I am beat up, I am hurting, all of those things, right? But as your body gets used to, as you recover, active recovery, nutrition, sleep, all those things we'll continue to teach throughout this, you'll start to see that black line rise and sort of that C phase, if you will, right? It's phase 2 of compensation, but the period point on the black line represented by a C, you start to see that upward recovery. And then upwards so much that you're over that baseline of where you were at the A point. And you go through this resistance phase, D, right? So now we're in phase 3. You go back to that Orange Theory, and you're a little bit stronger. You're a little bit more resistant to that stressor. And this is why it's important to train. It's important to do whatever repetitively enough to get your body to be resilient enough to be able to handle those stressors. Now, to my point, why can't we just use the same weight over and over and do the exact same thing over and over? Because what elicited that stress response in the first place, your body gets resistant to that. So it's no longer stressing your body. So if it's not stressing you, it's not changing you. We need new stress week after week, month after month, year after year. We need to add more stress, and we can modulate that stress in 100 different ways, as you'll see in our training programs. But if it doesn't stress you, it won't change you. So that's one of the reasons why you can't continue to use the same weight. Now, if you were to, what would happen? Well, we get into that phase 4, that decompensation. It's no longer stressing you. So you're losing your robustness. You're losing your resistance to that stress. And over time, yeah, maybe it will be enough of detraining that you can actually still get a little bit of stressor to it because you're no longer resistant to it. But that's not what you want. You don't want to be wasting your time. You want to be continuing to get better. You're a former athlete. You want to get better. And so that is why it's so critically important to continue to up the ante and challenge yourself week after week, day after day, month after month, whatever it might be with workouts, because you want to have that stress response. You want that point where you're like, oh man, I'm a little bit sore. I'm a little bit fatigued, because then your habits and your disciplines with nutrition and sleep and recovery and all of those things will allow you to have super compensation, where you then are a little bit more robust to that. Let's see. So homeostasis, right? I put this in the context of an athlete. They arrived at, and you can relate to this. You've done all of these things. You've arrived to campus in summer and started training. You're in whatever current physical shape you are, and we start training really, really hard. And your life is constantly sore because your strength coach, like me, is putting a lot of training on you, right? And then you're able to tolerate that, right? And you can tolerate new heightened stress and training. So when you go and you build that base with your strength coach, and then you go into preseason training, it's not too bad, right? Because you built robustness. You're able to handle that stress more. You're built for it at that rate, and then you can handle that stress. Now, if we never added more stress, your ability to tolerate that stress would diminish over time. And that's detraining, and that's not what anybody wants. So you see that training stimulus, that alarm phase, that resistance phase, you get this greater training stimulus. And whether we stop training and we now, you see the line starting to decrease on the right side of the graph, or if we're overtraining and we're never recovering from it, then we have that sort of that downward trend. But if we have the right strategies, if we have the right recovery modalities, if we eat right, we sleep right, we train right, then you can have that rebound. And it's this constant alarm, dip, rise, super compensation, recover, train right, super compensation. And we can get better and better and better and better. And that's what being an athlete is all about. Guys, this is, let's see if I can stop sharing my screen. This is how my courses go. Ooh, hey, there we go. These are, stop sharing screen, go back to this. This is how the modules go here, right? In the Former Athlete Society. So every single time we do this, we'll learn more, right? And I'm going to teach you those things. I'm going to teach you about eating right, feeling right, your body, recovery, how to train, right? The psychology. That's so important to me. And these are the things that your strength coach should have taught you. And I'm sorry, I'll apologize for our profession. If they did not, they should have. But if they didn't, then that's why I exist. And that's why this course exists. And that's why I'm so excited that you're here. And like I said before, let's leave some comments. Give me something from this video that you've learned. Put it in the general discussion, right? It's important for us to engage and share. And hey, I'm struggling with the active recovery, the psychological size. Hey, I don't understand what the macronutrients are. What's a protein? What's a fat? What's this? How can I eat more protein? How can I eat this, that? Hey, coach, how can I avoid detraining or overtraining? Or how can I make sure that my recovery is in line so I continue to have that super compensation period? All of these things, share it in the community, right? Share your wins, share your losses, share your questions. Let's engage with each other. Because that's what this is all about. That's what being a former athlete's all about. That's what's being a part of this Former Athlete Society is all about. And I want you to feel that camaraderie that we all once had, whether it's in the locker room or the team buses or the plane trips or wherever it is, and share with each other, because it's really important to build that between every single one of us that's in this community. So I hope you took something away from this lesson, and I'm excited to share more, and we will get definitely in more. And if you've gotten this far, then jump over to the next course, the module coming up next. Let's make sure we tune into that. because there's something special for you over there. So I appreciate you. Thank you.